There was a sense of normality in the Gage Park community of Chicago. With predominantly Catholic religious roots, a sense of community blanketed the multicultural neighborhood. Even the 6 members of the Martinez family called this area home and had been for the past 9 years. And February 2nd, 2016 had that home filled with the warmth of family and hopes for the future. It isn't known what each person was doing during those evening hours. Maybe the family was spending time together, hopefully. And for them, there was no way of preparing for what would come next, or even knowing why. Because at one point there would be 8 people in the Martinez home on February 2nd, 2016. And only 2 of them would walk out with their lives. Noe Martinez Sr., 62, his wife Rosario Martinez, 58, their 2 adult children, Noe Martinez Jr., 38, Maria Herminia Martinez, 32, and Maria's own 2 children, Leonardo Leo Cruz, 13, and Alexis Alexi Cruz, 10. This made up 3 generations of a single bloodline. Of Hispanic lineage, they added their own touch to the Chicago barrio. They immigrated from Mexico in hopes for a better life, but nothing was perfect. Maria Martinez, once married to Armando Cruz, was unfaithful and tensions ensued. Regardless, Armando was in the process of receiving permanent residence to the US. He had only 2 months left and couldn't wait to see his children who he spent months away from. Everything was in motion, but no one was prepared. The community was unprepared for what future events would cast a dark veil over the once vibrant Gage Park barrio. The Martinezes were unprepared for Diego Uribe's dark intentions as he was welcomed inside the home. Diego Uribe Cruz was the nephew of Armando Cruz. Diego kept a good relationship with his aunt-in-law Maria and his 2 cousins Leo and Alexi. But beneath the kind facade, he held enormous resentment, a disproportionate resentment towards the woman who mistreated his uncle. Although they were working it out, a hatred festered and toiled within him, but at the same time, he was just another 22-year-old who was going through life struggles. He and his girlfriend Japheth Ramos were on their life adventure together, committed to one another and sharing newborn life. Maybe this was too much of a challenge for Diego to shoulder, and he needed an escape. Because it seemed that there were financial struggles that drove Uribe to stop by his aunt's house the evening of February 2nd, 2016. Justified in his own sick mind, he needed to get paid. Upon hearing a knock at the door, Maria was met with Uribe and his girlfriend. Maybe a surprise, but not unwelcomed as they stepped inside. He was like family after all. As he made his way through the Martinez residence, his girlfriend followed closely, and while Uribe and Maria were engaged in conversation, Japheth listened. She recalled the conversation Diego had with her while driving over. As the 3 made their way to Maria's room, maybe Diego's girlfriend was having second thoughts. Maybe even rationalizing everything because he only mentioned robbing the family. And as he pulled out a pistol tucked away in his waistband, pointing it at his aunt and demanding money, maybe Japheth was too afraid to express a modicum of disobedience towards this armed assailant. At first, Maria was experiencing what is known as normalcy bias, a human tendency to respond to threat warnings with disbelief or minimization, and to similarly underestimate a disaster's deleterious effects. She began laughing at Uribe in disbelief, considering how outlandish everything was. But he wasn't smiling, and he kept his aim trained on her. As she began to ease her way into the seriousness of it all, she lunged for the gun. Maria was now in a struggle for her life with someone she trusted, with someone she once called nephew. And for a brief moment, Maria was adrenalized by the thought of her death, which all came to an end as Diego shot his aunt-in-law in the head. But it wasn't enough. Only 3 more execution-style shots would satiate his bloodlust. But now the whole house was aware something horrifying had occurred. Noe Martinez Jr. immediately jumped up and rushed towards his sister's room, where he was intercepted by Uribe. They engaged in a struggle before Noe was overpowered. His assailant was a 22-year-old man after all the potential wiped out. Uribe beat his uncle-in-law to death with the butt of the gun. As this happened, the matriarch Rosaura Martinez realized that both of her adult children, her babies, were being harmed, and with a mother's bravery rushed up to the stairs to try to stop the assailing force that invaded their midst. But in a barbaric fashion, Uribe would kick her down the flight of stairs, knocking her out when she tumbled to the bottom. Rage boiled over. He paved a path towards the kitchen to retrieve multiple knives, on a mission to carry out a sustained assault on the defenseless Rosaura. He then trained his focus on the children, Leo and Alexei. Memories of playing Xbox together and building what was once a strong bond relegated for barbarism. He ordered the boys to gather valuables and cash around the home. This was a robbery after all. Uribe needed money for his baby and a new car. This was his ticket to the good life. And as the terrified boys gathered the family valuables, they traversed the trail of death left behind. Unimaginable trauma ensued at what their cousin had done. Nevertheless, they collected an assortment of jewelry, some cash, and an Xbox, which made up the entirety of what this act of savagery would amount to. Uribe's girlfriend was still present for everything and followed him throughout his onslaught, picking up the weapons used and ordering the scared children around. Although she wasn't participating in the murders, she was in it for the long haul. She was now complicit. She recalled watching Diego take little Alexei down to the basement and hearing what she described as a laugh or a scream. Whatever the mind does to disguise the truth of cruelty, it was the sound of dying innocence. Uribe had plunged a knife into Alexei's little chest, piercing his heart. Then, taking Leo upstairs, Leonardo begging, "Please no, please don't, I just want to live," which sheds light into the embodiment of evil that was Diego as he stabbed the boy to death. At this point, 5 members of the Martinez bloodline had been wiped out. Only one remained. Noe Martinez Sr. had gone out to the store and was headed back shortly, and it would solidify the pure evil this whole ordeal entailed, because instead of running away with the plundered goods, Diego lied in wait for the 62-year-old patriarch, ultimately beating and stabbing the senior as well. In total, he would claim $550 in cash and items and an Xbox. A family annihilated for a pathetic score. Diego and Japheth quickly made their way into their car and fled the scene. 2 days after the slayings, the police were called for a welfare check. Noe Martinez Jr.'s co-workers were worried about his abrupt absences, showcasing how liked Noe was. He was even supposed to bring tamales for the gang. And upon entering the bungalow on the 5700 block of South California Avenue, the authorities found what remained. The family dog, Belusa, fuzzy, covered in blood. The Martinez family, annihilated. It was a grisly scene, and at first thought to be a murder-suicide, which later turned into a homicide investigation. Someone or someones had done this. What stood out was the victims weren't bound. There also weren't any signs of a break-in, which, to authorities, gave way to the theory that whoever did this knew the Martinez family, and the evidence needed processing ASAP. So investigators interviewed neighbors, friends, and loved ones. The name Diego Uribe would come up a few times, but he would play the part of mourning relative when he was contacted. Even at the funeral, he was seen crying, and would maintain feigning innocence even after submitting DNA and phone records. Never attempting to flee, what was his plan? Naive at its best, the DNA evidence underneath Maria's fingernails would point to him. As well, his blood was found inside the home. Maria's fight for her life wasn't in vain, because authorities closed in on Uribe swiftly. Almost 4 months after it happened, Uribe and his accomplice girlfriend would be apprehended on May 15, 2016. Upon interrogation, they both told a story, and presented with the insurmountable evidence, they both confessed. Both were charged with the first-degree murders of the 6 Martinezes just 4 days later on May 19, 2016. However, Japheth was offered a deal to testify against Uribe. His trial would begin on October 5, 2022. As much as their love meant to each other, if at all, she took it. She may have secured a 25-year sentence for her detailed submission of what drove Diego to massacre the people who called him family. It would only take 10 hours to find him guilty. He faces life with an official sentencing scheduled for November 7, 2022. The state of Illinois has abolished capital punishment, so in that regard, Diego is lucky and will spend the rest of his life atoning for what he did. At the site of the massacre were 6 crosses, set up to represent each family member and the lives they never got to live. Their remains flown to Mexico for burial, as they would have wanted. While the neighborhood breathed a sigh of relief when the pair were charged, they were still rightfully distraught, recounting how lovely the Martinez family was. Some expressed shock at Diego's involvement, stating, "Uribe played with those kids all the time. That family loved him." Even the father of the 2 boys, the ex-husband to Maria and Diego's blood uncle, Armando Cruz, through tears and in Spanish, gave a chilling statement. He was so close that they opened the door for him. They offered him a seat at the table. They offered him food, and I don't know who that person is. He is not the boy that I saw growing up. I don't know when he became the monster he is now. He mourns the loss of his precious boys and his precious family, going as far as hoping he'd died with them so he didn't need to experience this excruciating pain. The Gage Park Murders will forever be remembered as the day an innocent, hard-working, and good family lost their lives because of an immature rage. They came from Mexico to find a better life and were met with unfortunate circumstances. With the final words of Leonardo Leo Cruz, "I want to live. Live you shall, through the memories of your loved ones, through the memories of the people who mourn with you and for you. Rest in peace, Martinez family, taken 3 generations too soon."